People have asked me what my position is on abortion and abortion rights, especially since I was proudly the person responsible for the ending of something that all legal scholars, both sides, wanted and, in fact, demanded be ended. Roe v. Wade. They wanted it ended.
So, Amanda, you co-host the Suburban Women Problem podcast. So I'll just put the question to you. Was there a consensus that Roe had to go? Isn't that the former president's entire premise and what he's bragging about here?
That's his entire premise, and there was no consensus of any group that I know of other than the groups that claim to be pro-life. That's the only place that had consensus over the fact that Roe had to go, the fact, right? But really, when you ask women, when you ask legal scholars, when you ask Ohioans, when we voted on this last November, we did not think Roe had to go, and we don't think it should be a state's right. We think that that right should be held with the people.
That is the consensus. Human rights are fundamental. They're not negotiable. And women's access to healthcare, in my mind, and it turns out in the minds of not just most women, but most Americans, is a fundamental right. And a state doesn't get to decide to abrogate that.
Yeah. I mean, when we talk, the Republicans love to talk about states' rights, but they don't talk about states' rights to what? Right. And usually that's where their period ends. You're like, a state's rights to decide for women, a state's rights to decide for doctors, a state's rights to take away your liberties. When you let that sentence go on, right, then you find out clearly what they want. And what they want are to take away the freedoms of Americans and give that into the hands of many states across this nation.
Is this appeal by the former president going to work? I mean, first of all, give us like the context here. He has clearly realized that that he's the dog that caught the car, that all of his bragging about ending Roe v. Wade. You know what? Let me play a quick clip on that just to to remind people that he is incredibly proud of having delivered that to the extremist Christian base. Here it is.
If it weren't for me with Roe v. Wade, you wouldn't even be talking about this. You wouldn't be asking that question because we'd right back.
So he got what he wanted. He delivered the most extreme possible version of a post-Roe world. And now the voters are punishing Republicans across the country. This is an attempt by him to remedy that, right?
Even most Democrats understood what a huge overreach it was. I think a lot of Democrats thought that, I think women might forget. Now, women, a lot of women and the people who love them know we don't forget easily, right? We will hold that grudge for a while, and we are going to hold that until we get our rights back. It was a complete overreach. And I think when the nation saw how big of an overreach it was, is when they saw what happened in Kansas. And they said, whoa, even the majority of people in Kansas think this is an overreach. And then what happened in Ohio? And they said, whoa, the majority of Ohio who voted for Trump twice, they think this is an overreach. He is not in line with most Americans, but he's not even in line with most Republicans.
Yeah, that's the crazy part here. I mean, what he delivered to the evangelical wing of the Republican Party was wildly unpopular with just about everyone else. And it's coming back to haunt the entire party. But he went a step further. You know, he talked about women having to pay a price. That's almost a direct quote. Should they seek an abortion? You know, we'll roll that clip. Here it is.
Do you believe believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
10 cents, 10 years,
I don't know. That I don't know. That
why
I don't
not?
know. I don't know.
You take positions and everything else.
I do take positions and everything else. It's a very complicated position.
I'm asking, you're running for president, I'm not. I'm asking you, what should a woman face if she chooses to have an abortion?
I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play that game.
You said you're pro-life.
I am pro-life.
That means banning abortion.
So you said women aren't going to forget. Good. I hope the entire country remembers statements like that and punishes the former president and his entire party in 2024.
I hope so. I mean, the majority of the people aren't with him, but in this case, I'm not worried about the majority. I'm worried about the people he's talking to. he said some very clear talking points all along the way that are extreme. They are extreme by most Republican standards. Even talking about things like this is execution after birth and that this is somehow allowed by Democrats.
It must be remembered that the Democrats are the radical ones on this position because they support abortion up to and even beyond the 9th month. The concept of having an abortion in the later months and even execution after birth, and that's exactly what it is. The baby is born, the baby is executed after birth.
This is extreme. We already have laws about execution after birth. It's called murder. At every state, local, federal level, murder is illegal. But these are talking points that pro-life groups have used for decades. And they are doing this to engage a minority of people that they hope are so extreme that they will take the election even if they don't win it by a popular vote or the electoral vote.
Thanks for watching, everyone. Between now and the election, I'm going to highlight a handful of critical pro-democracy efforts that I want you to know about. The first of these is Veterans for Responsible Leadership, or VFRL. It's an organization on the front lines of the battle to protect our democratic safeguards and to hold accountable those who would dismantle them. VFRL's number one priority between now and November is preventing Donald Trump from being reelected. As an organization led by veterans, VFRL is bringing to bear all that experience and credibility to persuade other veterans and military family members that a vote for Donald Trump is a vote that undermines the very Constitution that those in the military swore to uphold. Here's where VFRL needs your help. If you are a veteran or a family member of one, and if you're looking for ways to make meaningful contributions between now and November, go to VFRL.org. The team there is working on a number of critical initiatives that will make a difference in the coming presidential election. But they need more veteran voices and more volunteers. If you're up for it, go to VFRL.org and sign up. I'll have more updates in the coming months on what they have planned, but trust me, it'll be worth your time. Thanks. That phrase, executing the baby after birth, I think most Americans hear that and they're like, that's crazy. But that is a dog whistle for the most radical pro-life activists. I would venture to say the ones even willing to act out violently their intention to make abortion impossible across the land. I mean, he is signaling to people like that, which is really scary.
It is. He is trying to enrage the people that think that there are doctors and women out there who are killing their own children after they are born, right? If you believe that to be true, and there are many people who believe that to be true, not only because he said it because he knows there are people that believe that to be true. That is something that you take up arms and you fight for, right? He is trying to get them, that minority of people, to fight to take that election. He knows he will never win that election by the Electoral College or the popular vote. The only way he can win is to enrage people to the point where they will take over this government through violence like we saw on January 6th.
What is he talking about, though? I think it's the infinitesimal fraction of cases of abortion where the fetus is non-viable or the life of the mother is at stake. And there are a handful of late-term abortions in the country, but nobody carries a baby for 9 months and decides, never mind. I mean, we're talking about the most extreme examples, which are tragic all around. And it's not a decision made lightly. It is the most serious decision a woman and her healthcare provider can make. And Trump wants the government to make that decision for them.
That's absolutely right. It rests on this fallacy that women are crazy, just flippant, doing things here and there, just whatever comes to mind, not rational, right? It rests on this idea that women can't decide for themselves because they're incapable, right? They're just too all over the place and too flighty. They're too flighty. Oh, I want a baby. Now I don't. But that is not women. I don't know any women like that. The women that have chosen abortion, especially in later term, right? This is a wanted baby, that they tried hard for this baby. They wanted that baby and something tragic happened. And they are inserting a state's right to make a choice for a family who is devastated about how to deal with the tragedy. There is just no one that should decide for anyone how to deal with a tragedy other than the person that's going through it. You just don't know what it's like until you're going through that tragedy. And to say that somehow states have the right to decide how you handle a tragedy is ridiculous.
Do you know Republican women who have changed their thinking about their affiliation with this party, or at least maybe a prior vote for the former president based on this issue? Is this a topic that is forcing a realignment?
It is. So when you start to have real conversations with people who love people and know their values, Ken, I think you talked about this with veterans recently on The Daily Show. The same goes for a lot of women out there. I have had conversations with family members of mine where I know their values. They have what they will call pro-life values. And when you start to talk about, all right, how do we stop abortions? You know women just like I know women. How would you stop them? They will say birth control. Great. Which party wants more birth control? Right? When you pose these questions using their own values, then what I have seen are women in my own family completely switch from Republican to Democrat on the issue of abortion, and specifically because they are pro-life. The party who supports access to birth control that would prevent abortions, that would prevent the decision of even coming up, that is the Democratic Party. When you look at the Affordable Care Act that Obama did, that stopped more abortions than any Republican I know in a while. And this actually shown in the research that the Affordable Care Act stopped abortions because it gave women access to long-acting birth control, right? So when you talk to people out of love, say, I understand your values. Let's talk about how we get to what you want. And you start to think about the policies that can get to fewer abortions. You start to even see, even on what they think of as pro-life, the Democratic Party is enacting policies that will lower the abortion rate.
You teed this up perfectly, and I'm embarrassed I didn't point it out first. But the drive to ban abortion is just step one in a much longer, more devious campaign by the far right to limit women's rights writ large. It starts with abortion, but now they're talking about birth control. They're talking about every aspect of a woman's healthcare choices, and some extremists within the Republican Party are coming after it all.
That's absolutely right. So I was raised in a pro-life conservative household, and I believed that the abortion issue was about saving babies. I believe that's what it was about. But the problem is when I see Republicans say out loud that they want to ban birth control, that's no longer about babies. That is about women, and that will increase abortion rates. So suddenly I know it's not about abortion. It's not about babies. It is only about women. It is only about preventing women, certain women from having children by banning IVF, or forcing certain women to have children by banning birth control. It is all about choosing every life decision for a woman.
Well, Amanda, tell us who you've got coming up on the Suburban Women Problem podcast.
We have a limited series right now, The Cost of Extremism, and we have been talking about how very extremist groups can get people, family members, to go down this rabbit hole of being involved in some very extremist groups.
Well, check it out. I'll make sure to put a link in the show notes. Thank you, as always, for joining us.
Thanks, Ken.
It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. If you haven't yet watched the award-winning documentary film Against All Enemies, check it out on Amazon, and please consider leaving a review. It makes a huge difference. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well. It's Ken Harbaugh with the MeidasTouch Network. The film Against All Enemies, which I co-produced with Ben Meiselas and this network, has won awards around the world for its up-close portrayal of America's insurrectionist movement. It premieres in the U.S. on March 29th on Amazon and Apple TV. Go to againstalllenemiesfilm.com or click the link below. But don't just watch Against All Enemies. Tell your friends about it. It's one more way to hold accountable those who threaten our democracy. Thanks, Meidas Mighty. Let's use our power well.